The millionaire man froze when he saw the girl. Her eyes, her smile, even the way she held the melons, everything reminded him of his little daughter who had been lost years ago. "What's your name?" he asked with a trembling voice. The girl looked at him curiously. "My name is Maria, sir." "Are you going to buy melons?" The man's heart raced. That was exactly his daughter's name. But there was something more, a small scar on her forehead that he recognized perfectly. "Maria, do you remember anything from when you were very little?" "A big house with a garden." The girl's eyes lit up with a flash of recognition. "Sometimes I dream about that, about a man who read me stories." Tears began rolling down the millionaire's cheeks. After so many years of searching, hiring private detectives, never losing hope, he had found her selling melons on the street. "Maria, I am your father," he whispered. Maria stepped back, her small hands trembling as she held a melon. "No, that can't be. My dad is Don Ricardo. He told me my real parents died in an accident." Eduardo Mendoza, the most powerful construction millionaire in the country, knelt in front of her, trying to control his emotions. "Maria, my love, they've lied to you. I've been looking for you since you were 4 years old. I never stopped searching for you." "Liar," the girl shouted, but her eyes showed confusion. "Don Ricardo takes care of me. He gives me food and a place to sleep." Eduardo noticed something strange in the way Maria talked about this Ricardo. There was fear in her voice, a tension that shouldn't exist when talking about a loving adoptive father. "Maria, where do you live? What's your house like?" The girl looked around nervously. I can't talk about that. Don Ricardo says it's dangerous. He says there are bad people who want to hurt us." At that moment, a black car stopped abruptly near the melon stand. 2 burly men got out of the vehicle, their faces hardened by violence. Maria turned pale when she saw them. "Maria! What are you doing talking to strangers?" roared the taller one, approaching with threatening steps. Eduardo stood up, positioning himself between the men and the girl. "I'm Eduardo Mendoza. This girl is my daughter." The men exchanged glances. The shorter one, with a scar across his cheek, smiled sinisterly. "Ah, the famous builder. Don Ricardo has told us a lot about you, Mr. Mendoza. He says you're a persistent man." "Who is Don Ricardo? Where has my daughter been all these years?" Eduardo felt adrenaline rushing through his veins. "Your daughter?" The scarred man laughed. "This girl is Don Ricardo's property. He found her abandoned years ago. He's raised her as if she were his own." "That's a lie." Eduardo pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police right now." "I wouldn't do that if I were you." The tall man discreetly showed a pistol under his jacket. "Don Ricardo wants to talk to you. He says it's time you knew the truth." Maria hid behind Eduardo, trembling. "Dad. I'm scared." The word "dad" came out as a whisper, but it was enough to fill Eduardo's heart with a mixture of joy and terror. His daughter had recognized him, but she was in mortal danger. "All right, I'll go with you. But Maria comes with me, and you won't hurt her." "Oh, of course she comes with us. Don Ricardo is very eager to see her again. He's been worried about her." The car ride was tense. Maria clung to Eduardo's hand, whispering fragments of memories that came to her mind like flashes: the garden with white roses, a dog named Max, bedtime stories. With each shared memory, Eduardo confirmed that this was definitely his lost daughter. "Maria," he whispered in her ear, "do you know what kind of work Don Ricardo does?" The girl looked nervously at the men in the front seat before answering in a very low voice. "He says he's a merchant. But sometimes very scared men come to the house. And there are boxes I can never touch. Boxes that smell weird." Eduardo felt a chill. His suspicions were confirmed. The description fit perfectly with what he knew about drug trafficking operations in the city. The car stopped in front of a mansion on the outskirts of the city. It was large but neglected, with abandoned gardens and barred windows. Everything opposite to the house full of love where Maria had lived her first years. "Welcome home, Mr. Mendoza," said the scarred man. They led them to an ostentatious but tasteless room, full of golden furniture and artwork that Eduardo suspected were forgeries. Behind a huge desk sat a man of about 50 years, bald, with small and cruel eyes. "Eduardo Mendoza," said the man, standing up. "I'm Ricardo Vasquez. I believe you know my daughter." "Your daughter?" Eduardo clenched his fists. "This girl was kidnapped from my house 8 years ago." "You're a criminal." Ricardo laughed, an unpleasant sound that filled the room. "Criminal? I'm a businessman. And this girl, well, let's say she came to me under very particular circumstances." "What do you mean?" "Sit down, Eduardo. It's a long story." Eduardo remained standing, keeping Maria close to him. "Talk now." Ricardo lit a cigarette and leaned back in his chair. 8 years ago, you rejected my business proposal. I wanted my products to pass through your constructions. You refused. You said you would never get involved with drug dealers, and I was right, perhaps. But your rejection cost me a lot of money. A lot of money, Eduardo. So I decided to send you a message. Horror began to take hold of Eduardo. You ordered my daughter's kidnapping. Initially, the plan was to keep her for a few days, scare you a little, and then negotiate. But when my men brought her... Ricardo looked at Maria with a strange expression. She was so small, so scared. And she looked so much like my own daughter, who had died in an accident years before. "Son of a bitch," Eduardo muttered. "I decided to keep her. I registered her with false documents, told her that her parents had died. Over time, she became useful for my business." "Useful?" "She's a child who can move around a city without raising suspicion. The melons she sells have special compartments. She transports my products throughout the city, and no one suspects a girl selling fruit." Eduardo felt his blood freeze. His daughter had been turned into a drug mule without knowing it. "The police will know about this," he threatened. "The police?" Ricardo laughed again. "Half the police in this city is on my payroll. The other half is too scared to act against me. And now what? What do you want from me?" Ricardo stood up and walked to the window. "Now that you've reunited, I have a proposal. You accept my original business. Your constructions become distribution points for my merchandise. In exchange, Maria can go with you, and if you refuse. Ricardo made a signal and more armed men appeared in the room. "Both you and Maria will disappear. I have several plots where they'll never find you." Maria began to cry silently. Eduardo hugged her, feeling helplessness and rage running through his veins. "I need time to think about it," he said finally. "You have until noon tomorrow. Meanwhile, Maria stays here. As insurance." "No." Eduardo held his daughter tighter. "She comes with me." "I'm afraid that's not negotiable." Ricardo made another signal and the armed men came closer. "But don't worry. Maria has lived here for years. She's used to it." Separating Maria from him was like tearing out his heart. The girl screamed and fought, calling him Dad over and over again. Ricardo's men dragged her to another room while Eduardo was escorted to the door. "Remember, Mr. Mendoza," said Ricardo as Eduardo was pushed toward the car. "Noon tomorrow. And if you try something stupid, like calling the police or hiring mercenaries, Maria will pay the consequences." The return trip was a nightmare. Eduardo couldn't stop thinking about his daughter, alone and scared in that house full of criminals. But he also couldn't accept becoming an accomplice to a drug trafficking operation. Back in his office, Eduardo locked himself in and began making calls. He contacted Miguel Santos, his security chief, an ex-military man with contacts in special forces. He also called Carmen Reyes, the investigative journalist who had been following Ricardo Vasquez's operations for months. "Eduardo," said Carmen when she arrived at his office an hour later, "I've been investigating Vasquez for 3 years. He's the head of the largest drug trafficking network in the region. But we've never been able to prove it." "What do you know about him?" "He moves cocaine from Colombia to the United States. He uses a network of street children to distribute in the city. He has judges, police, and politicians bought. And he's absolutely ruthless. Miguel arrived shortly after, accompanied by two men Eduardo didn't recognize. These are my contacts, Miguel explained. Ex-Special Forces. If we're going to rescue your daughter, we need a military plan. Are you sure we can trust them? With my life, Miguel responded. But Eduardo, you have to understand something. If we do this, there's no going back. Ricardo won't forgive us for rescuing Maria. He'll come after you with everything he has. Eduardo looked out his office window, toward the city he had helped build with his real estate developments. A city he now knew was infected with corruption and crime. Then we'll have to make sure he can't come after us, he said finally. Carmen leaned forward. What are you thinking? We're going to rescue Maria. But we're also going to destroy Ricardo's entire operation. We're going to record him confessing to the kidnapping. We're going to document his entire business. And we're going to turn him over to federal authorities, not local police. That's very dangerous, Miguel warned. More dangerous than leaving my daughter in the hands of that monster. Eduardo stood up, with a determination he hadn't felt in years. We're going to plan everything tonight. Tomorrow, before noon, we're going to enter that house and end this once and for all. 11:30 a.m., 1 hour before the ultimatum. Eduardo checked his watch while adjusting his bulletproof vest. Miguel and his two contacts, Carlos and Javier, were checking their weapons one last time. Carmen had the hidden cameras ready and the recording equipment functioning. Remember, said Miguel in a low voice, we enter through the back. Carlos and Javier neutralized the perimeter guards. Eduardo and I go for Maria. Carmen stays in the car with the engine running. What if there are more guards than we expect? Asked Carmen. Then we improvise, Eduardo replied, loading the pistol Miguel had given him. He had never fired a weapon in his life, but he was willing to do anything for his daughter. The plan was simple: get in, rescue Maria, obtain evidence of Ricardo's crimes, and get out before he could react. But Eduardo knew nothing would be that easy. 11:45 a.m. Infiltration. The mansion looked more sinister in daylight. The abandoned gardens created perfect shadows for hiding. Carlos and Javier moved like ghosts, silently neutralizing the exterior guards. Eduardo and Miguel waited for the signal. When it came, two soft taps on the radio, they began moving toward the house. Do you know where they have Maria? Whispered Miguel. Ricardo said she was used to living here. Probably on the second floor, where the bedrooms would be. They entered through a basement window that Carlos had forced. The house smelled of humidity and something else, something sweet and chemical that Eduardo couldn't identify. Cocaine, Miguel murmured. There's a laboratory here. They climbed the stairs carefully. The house was strangely quiet. Too quiet. I don't like this, said Miguel. Where is everyone? As if he had heard his words, a voice echoed from the upper floor. Eduardo. I knew you would come. It was Ricardo. His voice came from the main hallway. It's a trap, Miguel murmured. I don't care, Eduardo replied. My daughter is here. They went up to the second floor. Ricardo was waiting for them in the hallway, unarmed, with a cruel smile on his face. You arrived early. I respect that in a man. Where is Maria? Eduardo growled. Oh, she's here. Very close. But before you see her, there's something you need to know. Ricardo opened a door at the end of the hallway. Come, Eduardo. Come see what I really do here. Eduardo and Miguel approached cautiously. When they reached the door, Eduardo felt the world stop. The room was large, with several mattresses on the floor. But it wasn't empty. There were 7 children, 7 chained children. Maria was in a corner, with shackles on her ankles, hugging a smaller girl who couldn't be more than 6 years old. 5 other children, all between 8 and 12 years old, were distributed around the room. Some were sleeping, others crying silently. Dad! Maria screamed when she saw him, trying to get up but limited by the chains. Eduardo felt his soul breaking. What is this? He roared, turning toward Ricardo. My business, Ricardo replied calmly. These children are my distribution network. I took them from families who couldn't pay me, from the streets, from orphanages. They're invisible, Eduardo. No one looks for them. Son of a bitch, Miguel raised his weapon. I wouldn't do that, said Ricardo. He snapped his fingers and 4 armed men appeared from different directions. Lower your weapons. Eduardo and Miguel had no choice. They dropped their pistols. Now, Ricardo continued, as you can see, Maria is not alone. These children are also mine. And here's my final proposal. Ricardo pulled a key from his pocket. I can free Maria. You can take her. But the others stay. Or what? Eduardo already knew he wouldn't like the answer. Or you try to rescue them all and I kill them all right here. Including Maria. You can't be serious. Do I look like I'm joking? Ricardo approached one of the children, a boy of about 10 who was trembling with fear. This is Diego. I took him 2 years ago. His parents haven't stopped looking for him. Imagine their joy if they knew I'm about to kill him because of you. No. Maria screamed from the corner. Don't hurt Diego. Eduardo looked at the children. They were malnourished, dirty, terrified. Some had marks on their arms, evidence of abuse. The girl Maria was hugging couldn't be more than 6 years old and was crying without making a sound. How many more are there? Eduardo asked. In total? About 20 in different locations. But these 7 are special. They're my main team. Miguel approached Eduardo. We can't save them all, he whispered. If we try to get them out, they'll kill us all. How am I going to explain to Maria that I let these children die? Eduardo looked at his daughter. How am I going to live with myself? You have 30 seconds to decide, said Ricardo, looking at his watch. Maria leaves with you, or they all die here. Eduardo closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked directly at Ricardo. There's a third option. What? I stay. You free all the children, let them go with Miguel, and I take Maria's place in your business. Ricardo laughed. A 50-year-old millionaire as a drug mule? Don't be ridiculous. Not as a mule. As a partner. I give you access to all my construction projects, to my political contacts, to my business network. In exchange, you free all the children. No, Dad. Maria screamed. Don't stay. Miguel grabbed Eduardo's arm. You're crazy. He'll kill you as soon as the children leave. Maybe, said Eduardo. But at least the children will be safe. Ricardo considered it for a moment. Interesting. But I don't trust you, Eduardo. How do I know you won't call the police as soon as the children are safe? Because you'll have this. Eduardo took a ring off his finger. It's a family ring. Worth more than $1 million. But more importantly, it has a GPS tracker. If I call the police, you'll know exactly where I am at all times. It was a lie. The ring didn't have a tracker. But Eduardo was betting that Ricardo wouldn't know. Besides, Eduardo continued, if you kill me, you lose access to my empire. But if you keep me alive, you can control everything from the shadows. Ricardo looked at the ring, then at the children, then at Eduardo. 5 minutes, he said finally. Miguel has 5 minutes to get all the children out of here. Then we close the deal. No. Maria fought against the chains. Dad, don't leave me. Eduardo approached her and hugged her. Listen to me, my love. You're going to go with Miguel. You're going to be safe. And I'm going to find a way to get out of this. Promise me you'll come back. I promise I'll fight to come back to you. Miguel began freeing the children. The chains were heavy, but the keys Ricardo provided worked. One by one, the children were freed. Diego, the 10-year-old boy, could barely walk. 2 of the girls were so scared they couldn't speak. The 6-year-old girl that Maria had been hugging clung to her. Her name is Sofia, Maria told Eduardo. Her parents are dead too. Promise me you'll take care of her. I promise. While Miguel helped the children out, Eduardo secretly recorded with a hidden camera that Carmen had given him. Ricardo's confession about the kidnapping and the network of children was being documented. Time, Ricardo announced. Miguel had managed to get 6 of the 7 children out. Only Maria remained. Dad. Maria ran toward him, but Eduardo stopped her. You have to go with Miguel. You have to take care of the other children. Especially Sophia. I don't want to leave you, I don't want you to go either. But it's the only way to keep you all safe. Maria hugged him tightly. I love you, Dad. I love you too, my princess. More than you can imagine. Miguel approached. Eduardo, this is madness. Come with us. No. Take the children. Make sure they get to safety. And give this to Carmen. Eduardo discreetly handed him the camera. She'll know what to do with it. Miguel took the camera and nodded. I'm coming back for you, I know. And then they left. Eduardo watched his daughter walk toward the door, turning to look at him one last time before disappearing down the hallway. Very touching, said Ricardo. But now we're alone, Eduardo. And we need to talk business. Talk. First, I need you to understand something. Those children aren't really going to be safe. I know Miguel. I know Carmen. I know where they live. If you try to betray me, I'll go after them. Eduardo felt a chill. What do you want? I want you to transfer control of 3 of your biggest projects to me. I want access to your bank accounts. And I want you to give me the names of all your contacts in government. And if I refuse, then Maria and the other children will have a very unfortunate accident. Eduardo knew he had no choice. At least, not yet. All right. But I need guarantees. What kind of guarantees? I want proof that the children are safe. I want to talk to Maria every day. And I want you to promise that if I cooperate completely, you'll eventually let me go. Ricardo laughed. Eduardo, you're my partner now. Partners don't leave. Partners work together until one of them dies. At that moment, Eduardo heard sirens in the distance. Many sirens. What is that? Ricardo ran to the window. Eduardo smiled for the first time in days. That's the federal police. And probably the army too. Impossible. You couldn't have. Not me. But Miguel did. As soon as the children were safe, he was going to call the contacts Carmen has in the federal government. Ricardo pulled out his pistol. Then we'll die together. No, said Eduardo. You'll die. I'm going to live to see my daughter grow up. The sirens were getting closer. Eduardo could hear helicopters in the sky. Boss, shouted one of Ricardo's men from downstairs. We're surrounded. Ricardo pointed the pistol at Eduardo. This is your fault. No, Eduardo replied. This is justice. At that moment, the windows of the room shattered. Tear gas filled the air. Eduardo threw himself to the floor while armed commandos entered through the windows. Hands up. Hands up. Ricardo fired wildly before being brought down by 3 officers. Eduardo felt a sharp pain in his left shoulder but remained conscious. I'm Eduardo Mendoza, he shouted. I'm the victim. My daughter was kidnapped. One of the commandos approached him. Mr. Mendoza. I'm Captain Ruiz. Your daughter is safe. All the children are safe. Eduardo began to cry. Are they really safe? Yes, sir. Your daughter is in an ambulance, asking for you. Can I see her? Of course. But first we need a doctor to check that wound on your shoulder. While the paramedics attended to him, Eduardo heard Ricardo screaming from downstairs. This doesn't end here, Mendoza. I have people everywhere. You'll never be safe. Captain Ruiz approached Eduardo. Don't worry about him. With the evidence we have, he's never getting out of prison. And we've dismantled his entire network. We rescued 14 other children in different locations. 14, yes. Your daughter Maria helped us remember the addresses she had heard. She's a very brave girl. Eduardo smiled despite the pain. Yes, she is. Mr. Mendoza, there's something else. Journalist Carmen Reyes gave us recordings of the entire operation. Ricardo confessed to multiple crimes. Your testimony is going to help prosecute everyone involved, including the corrupt politicians and police, especially them. Eduardo closed his eyes. After 8 years, the nightmare was over. Not only had he recovered his daughter, but he had helped rescue more than 20 kidnapped children. Captain, said Eduardo, I want to adopt a girl. Her name is Sophia. She's 6 years old. She has no family. That's very noble of you, Mr. Mendoza. It's not noble. It's the right thing to do. Maria loves her like a sister. And after everything they've been through together, I'm not going to separate them. Understood? We'll talk to social services. While they carried him on a stretcher toward the ambulance, Eduardo could see the chaos at the mansion. Dozens of officers, evidence being collected, computers being confiscated. The largest criminal operation in the region had been dismantled, but more importantly, he saw Maria running toward him. Dad! Dad! She clung to him, being careful not to touch his wounded shoulder. I'm here, my love. I'm here. Is he dead? Is the bad man dead? He's not dead. But he's going to prison for the rest of his life. He'll never be able to hurt any child again. Maria hugged him tighter. Dad, can we take Sophia with us? She doesn't have anyone. Eduardo looked toward another ambulance where little Sophia was being attended by paramedics. The girl looked at him with eyes full of hope. Yes, my love. Sophia is coming home with us. Really, really. Now you're going to have a little sister. Maria smiled for the first time in days. I want to show her my room. And my toys. And I want her to meet Max. Max, our dog. Do we still have Max? Eduardo laughed, even though it hurt. Yes, my love. Max has been waiting for you. We've all been waiting for you. As the ambulances drove away from the mansion, Eduardo hugged his daughter and looked toward the future. He had found Maria, rescued more than 20 children, and dismantled a criminal network. But most importantly, he had recovered his family. And soon, that family was going to be a little bigger. 6 months later, the garden of the Mendoza house had come back to life. The white roses that Eduardo had planted when Maria was little were blooming again, as if they knew the girl had returned home. The green grass extended to the old oak tree where a swing hung that had remained motionless for 8 years. Now, 2 girls were swinging on it, laughing under the afternoon sun. Eduardo watched from the terrace, a cup of coffee in his hands and a smile that no longer hurt to form. His shoulder had healed completely, but the emotional scars of the entire family would take more time to disappear. Dad? Maria came running, with Sophia holding her hand. After 6 months of living together, the 2 girls were inseparable. Sophia wants to know if she can call you Dad too. Eduardo knelt in front of little Sophia, who looked at him with those big, expressive eyes that reminded him so much of Maria at that age. In these months, the girl had gained weight, her hair had recovered its shine, and most importantly, she had begun to smile. Do you want to call me Dad, Sophia? He asked gently. The girl nodded shyly. Yes, if you don't mind. Of course I don't mind, my little one. It would be an honor. Sophia lunged toward him in a hug. Dad, she shouted, and the words sounded like music. Maria hugged them both. Now we're a complete family, she declared with the wisdom of her 12 years. You know what? Said Eduardo. I think it's time to show Sophia the secret attic. Yes. Maria jumped with excitement. Sophia, wait until you see all my toys from when I was little. The 2 girls ran toward the house, but Eduardo stopped them for a moment. Before you go up, I have something to tell you. He sat at the garden table and had the girls sit with him. You know that tomorrow is a very special day, right? Maria nodded solemnly. It's the day of Ricardo's final trial. Exactly. And I want you to know that, no matter what happens tomorrow, you are safe. Ricardo is going to prison for many, many years. He'll never be able to hurt any child again. Sophia moved closer to him. Dad, why do bad people exist? It was a question Eduardo had asked himself many times in these months. I don't know, my love. But I do know that for every bad person, there are many more good people. And good people always fight to protect children like you. Like Miguel and Carmen, said Maria. Exactly. Miguel and Carmen risked their lives to save you. Captain Ruiz and his men too. There are many good people in the world. At that moment, Max, the family's golden retriever, came running and lay down at the girl's feet. The dog had been so excited about Maria's return that the first few weeks he barely separated from her. Max is good too, Sophia laughed, petting the dog. Yes, Max is good too. Eduardo's phone rang. It was Carmen. Excuse me, girls. I have to answer. He moved away a little while the girls played with Max. Hello, Carmen. Eduardo, I have news from the trial. The judge issued an early sentence. Ricardo received 4 life sentences without possibility of parole. Eduardo closed his eyes and felt an enormous weight lift from his shoulders. And the others, all sentenced. The corrupt politicians, the police, the distributors. The entire network has been dismantled. Your testimony and the recordings were fundamental. And the other children? The ones we rescued, that's the best news. They're all well. Diego returned to his family, his parents couldn't stop crying with happiness. The twins we found in the warehouse were adopted by a wonderful family. And Carlos, the 9-year-old boy, it turns out his aunt had been looking for him for years. Eduardo smiled. And those who had no family, they all found homes. There's something beautiful about how people respond when they know the truth. After the story came out, hundreds of families offered to adopt. I'm glad to hear that. Eduardo, there's something else. The foundation you created, the María and Sofía Foundation, has already raised more than $5 million to help kidnap children and victims of human trafficking. Eduardo looked toward where the girls were playing. He had named the foundation in honor of his 2 daughters, and had been surprised by the massive public response. It's incredible what people are willing to do when they know the truth, he said. Speaking of that, have you thought about my proposal? Carmen had asked him to write a book telling the whole story. She would help with the journalistic research. I'm still not ready, Eduardo admitted. The girls need more time to heal, I understand. But when you're ready, I think your story could help many families. After hanging up, Eduardo returned to the girls. Was that Carmen? Asked María. Yes. She had good news. Ricardo is going to be in prison forever. María nodded, but Eduardo noticed there were still shadows in her eyes when that name was mentioned. María, can I talk to you for a moment? They left Sofía playing with Max and walked toward the oak tree. How do you really feel, my love? María was quiet for a moment. Sometimes I have nightmares. I dream that I'm back in that horrible house, and that Sofía and I can't escape. Eduardo hugged her. That's normal, my princess. You went through something very difficult. Do you remember what Dr. Lopez said? María nodded. The psychologist who was helping them had explained that healing would take time. She says the nightmares will eventually stop, and meanwhile, we're going to face them together. You, Sofía, Max and me. We're a team. Dad, yes. Do you have nightmares too? Eduardo considered lying to her, but decided to be honest. Sometimes. I dream about the day I lost you. Or about the room where I found you. But you know what helps me? What? Remembering this moment. Remembering that you're here, safe, with me. Remembering that Sofía is laughing in the garden. Remembering that Max is happy to have you back. María smiled. Remembering that I'm home helps me too, and you'll always be home. I'll never let anything bad happen to you again. I know, Dad. Because now you're stronger. Eduardo laughed. Stronger? Yes. When I was little, I thought you were the strongest man in the world because you built huge buildings. But now I know you're really strong, because you fought against the bad men to save me. Maria's words went straight to his heart. María, there's something I need to tell you. Something very important. What? You were the one who saved us all. Me? Yes. You took care of Sofía and the other children when they were scared. You remembered the addresses you had heard so we could find the other kidnapped children. You gave me strength to keep fighting. You're the bravest girl I know. María blushed. I just did what I had to do. Exactly. And that's what brave people do. They do what they have to do, even when they're afraid. Sofía came running over. Can we go to the attic now? Of course, said María. Dad, are you coming with us? I'll be up in a moment. First I want to finish watering the roses. The girls entered the house, and Eduardo stayed a moment longer in the garden. He took out his phone and dialed a number. Miguel. Eduardo, how are you? Good. Very good, actually. I wanted to thank you again. You've thanked me enough. It'll never be enough. You risked your life for my family. I'd do it again without hesitation. I know. And that's exactly why I want to offer you something. What? I want you to be the security director of the Maria and Sofia Foundation. We need someone to supervise the protection of the children we rescue. Miguel was quiet for a moment. Eduardo, it would be an honor. The job is yours if you want it. I want it. After hanging up, Eduardo watered the white roses. Some of the plants had died during the years he was depressed after losing Maria. But he had replaced them, and now the garden was more beautiful than ever. Like his family, from inside the house, he heard laughter. Maria was showing Sofia the dollhouse he had built years ago. He heard her explain how each room had perfect furniture, how the kitchen had real dishes, how the living room had a piano that actually worked. Eduardo smiled. For years, that dollhouse had been covered in dust, a painful reminder of the daughter he had lost. Now it was alive again, filling with new memories with two girls who deserved all the happiness in the world. He entered the house and went up to the attic. The girls were sitting on the floor, surrounded by toys. Dad, look. Sofia had a teddy bear in her arms. Maria says I can keep it. It's my favorite bear from when I was little, Maria explained. His name is Bruno. He always made me feel safe when I had nightmares. Are you sure you want to give it to her? Asked Eduardo. Yes. Now Sofia needs him more than me. Besides, I don't need Bruno to feel safe anymore. Why not? Maria smiled. Because I have you. Eduardo sat on the floor with them. You know what? I think it's time to make some plans. What kind of plans? Asked Sofia. Well, next month is Maria's birthday. She turns 13. How about we have a party? Yes, both girls shouted in unison. But I don't want a big party, Maria said quickly. Just us. And Miguel. And Carmen. And maybe Diego and the other children we rescued. That sounds perfect, said Eduardo. And how about we also celebrate Sofia's adoption birthday? Sofia looked at him confused. What's that? It's the day you officially became part of our family. It's as important as a regular birthday. Sofia's eyes filled with tears of happiness. Really, really. Every year, on the day I signed the adoption papers, we're going to celebrate that you came into our lives. Sofia threw herself into his arms. Maria hugged them both. Dad, Maria said quietly, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think Mom would be happy to see us like this? Eduardo felt a lump in his throat. Maria's mother had died in a car accident when she was 3 years old. For a long time, Eduardo had felt he had failed both of them. He couldn't protect his wife from death, nor his daughter from kidnapping. I think your mom would be incredibly proud, he said finally. Proud of the brave and loving girl you've become. And I think she would love Sofia like her own daughter. I think so too, said Maria. Sofia looked at a photo of Maria's mother that was on one of the attic shelves. Do you think she would have loved me? Sofia, said Eduardo, your mom in heaven would have loved you from the first moment she saw you. Because you're special, you're brave, and you're part of our family. That night, after the girls went to sleep, Eduardo sat in his study. On his desk he had 3 things: a photo of Maria selling melons, he had secretly taken it the day he found her, a photo of the 7 rescued children in the hospital after the operation, and a recent photo of Maria and Sofia playing in the garden. He also had a letter he had written but never sent. He opened it and read it once more. Asterisk, to all parents searching for their lost children, don't give up. Never give up. I searched for my daughter for 8 years. I hired detectives, put up posters, followed every lead, no matter how small. There were days I wanted to give up. Days when the pain was so great I could barely breathe. But I kept searching, and I found her. I found her selling melons on a corner, turned into a tool of organized crime, but with her spirit intact. I found her and rescued not only her, but many other children. Your story hasn't ended. My story hadn't ended. And yours hasn't either. Keep searching. Keep hoping. Keep loving, because a parent's love is the most powerful thing that exists in this world. And sometimes, just sometimes, love is enough to bring our children back home, with hope and solidarity. Eduardo Mendoza, *. Eduardo folded the letter and put it in an envelope. Tomorrow he would give it to Carmen to publish along with the final article about the case. He got up and walked to the girls' bedrooms. First he checked on Sofia, who was sleeping hugging Bruno, the teddy bear. Her breathing was calm and steady. She no longer had the constant nightmares of the first months. Then he went to Maria's room. His daughter was asleep, but had left a small light on. She still couldn't sleep in complete darkness. Eduardo sat in the chair next to her bed, as he used to do when she was little. "I love you, my princess," he whispered. "And I promise I'll never let anything bad happen to you again." Maria moved in her sleep and smiled, as if she had heard. Eduardo stayed there a while longer, simply watching his daughter sleep. He thought about all the lost years, all the nights he had spent wondering if she was okay, if she was hungry, if she was scared. But he also thought about the future. About the birthdays they would celebrate, the graduations he would see, the day he would walk her down the aisle, the grandchildren he might someday meet. He thought about Sofia, who had come into their lives in the most terrible circumstances but who was now as much a part of the family as if she had been born into it. He thought about all the other children they had rescued, who were now safe in loving homes. And he thought about Ricardo, rotting in a cell where he belonged. Justice doesn't always come quickly, but when it comes, it's sweet. Eduardo got up from the chair and walked to the window. The garden looked beautiful under the moonlight. The white roses seemed to glow in the darkness. Tomorrow would be another day. Maria would go to school, where she had made new friends who helped her feel normal again. Sofia would go to kindergarten, where she had flourished with the attention and care of her teachers. Eduardo would work at the foundation, helping more families reunite. But for tonight, he would simply enjoy the miracle of having his two daughters safe under his roof. He headed to his own bedroom, but before going to bed, he did something he had started doing every night since he got Maria back. He knelt beside his bed and prayed. He wasn't a particularly religious man, but he had learned that there are moments in life when gratitude is so deep that it needs to be expressed towards something greater than oneself. "Thank you," he whispered in the darkness. "Thank you for bringing Maria back home. Thank you for Sofia. Thank you for giving us another chance to be a family." Outside, the wind gently moved the branches of the oak tree where the swing hung. Where tomorrow, like every day, two girls would play and laugh, reminding the world that after the most terrible storm, the sun can always shine again. Eduardo lay down and closed his eyes. For the first time in 8 years, he slept through the night without nightmares. In the next room, Maria briefly woke up and heard her father's peaceful breathing. She smiled in the darkness and went back to sleep. In the other room, Sofia hugged Bruno tighter and murmured, "Dad," in her dreams. And in the garden, the white roses continued blooming, as they had for generations, as they would continue to do for generations more. Because some things are eternal, like the love of a family, like hope that never dies, like light that always returns after the deepest darkness. The end. In memory of all the lost children who still wait to return home, and in honor of the families who never stop searching.